Welcome back to a very quick dusting history. Today I've got Henry Lawson. He's an Australian icon, and as such I thought it was a shame that this image was ripped and dirty. It almost felt like my duty to repair it. Now the best way to remove losses like this, as you can see in the top right corner, is to use generative fill, particularly in this instance because it doesn't have any bearing on the portrait itself, it's just background filler. So I'll create a marquee selection, get warned that I'm in grayscale mode, not RGB, change that, hit generative fill, and then wait for Photoshop to give me three choices. If I don't like those choices, I can hit generate again and just infinitely generate options. So I'm just going to pick the most benign looking background, something not to draw attention to the portrait. I'm also expanding the background to the left and to the bottom to make the composition a little more pleasing. Again, using generative fill, although this time it's generative expand, which is a new thing in Photoshop Beta. And you can see it's not only expanded the background, but invented part of his arm. So I'm also going to use it again on this bottom part of the image, just to frame him up a little better. And it's done a really great job of matching the weave of his jacket. Okay, so now with the remove tool, sped up 2000 times, I'll give the image a quick clean. And then as usual, I'll head over to the neural networks and go to the photo restore tab. Now, it does a horrible job of the face. It turns it into a cartoon character, so I'll turn that off. All I'm looking for is a little grain reduction at this point. Now I'll duplicate the image and go into Topaz Photo AI and try and sharpen the image up a little bit there. Again, I'm keeping recover faces off. I'm actually going to use a different program for that. So whilst the neural networks took out some of the grain, Photo AI is really good at just sharpening up the details a little. Now I'm going to be selective about what parts of the sharpened image I'm going to keep, so I'm just painting through a mask from the sharper image to the softer image below. In fact, this top image wasn't Photo AI. I used Remini, which is an app online that allows you to sharpen up images, but it has a way of over sharpening. So I like to bring it in and then knock it back and just use it selectively. You can see I don't like the way it's done a sharp border around his hair. So I'm just sort of, you can see in the mask on the second top layer, the little black spots are the areas I'm removing. So really I'm going back to a lot of the original image around the bottom of the portrait. Now I've been to palette.fm, made a color palette of him, and you can see he's a little pasty face looking, but it has made some interesting choices. It's made the chair blue, which obviously is not right. Although I do like the kind of grey jacket and I do like the kind of background, and they're the two things I'll be keeping. So just selecting some more appropriate color, I make a start on a separate layer of just colouring the portrait how I think it should be coloured. As usual, finding reference is great. Sampling colours directly from that picture of the rattan chair. And you can see on the second top layer, that's my paint layer. You can see the areas I've been painting. Evening out the colour of his jacket, changing things like his scarf, making it less ostentatious. Now, this is where I make a misstep. I spend a long time trying to find good reference of people lit from the same way, and then I find this woman and I've started sampling her colour for him, but actually he ended up looking kind of even worse. He looked a bit more plastic. So I ended up putting this away after I did all this work. I put this portrait away for 2-3 hours and I came back to it and really didn't like the look. He looks very chalky, very manufactured. So whilst again this is not a bad basis, it wasn't going to be what I ended up with. Even his hair didn't look really realistic. In fact, taking some of the colour out of it like that was a good idea. So here you can see I've added a colour lookup, and you can select all different kind of camera looks, and this one just really crushed the top end a little bit and desaturated things a little bit, and actually made it seem like he was taken with a more modern contemporary photo stock. It also helped to take away some of the pastiness of his skin colour. And using this girl, not only her face and the colour of her face, but also the colour of her hair, I started to recolour the portrait. For me, the most interesting thing about her hair was most of the colour or the saturation was in the darker tones, and in the lighter tones it was almost grey or pale white. So I used that as a real reference, just to kiss in a little bit of those sandier colours, but mostly into the darker areas. Now, as you can see, while I'm doing the colour work, I've got the colour corrections above turned off, and you can see when I turn them back on, the image really pops. So hopefully I did the old portrait proud. I think your response to a photograph is far stronger when it's cleaned, and even more so when it's coloured well. Hopefully I've done it some justice. So as usual, thank you very much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time. Thanks.